Welcome to the Busnsource Podcast. Today we have on Matt Rosendahl. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would love to. I'd love to, man. Thanks, Brian, for having me on. So I am a combination of almost like personal wellness and health kind of self-made guru in that way, and self-made businessman. So underneath it all, I'm focused on and all about helping other people succeed, not just about, myself and being successful as an individual. Through my business and through the things that I do personally, it's total dedication and commitment to success and helping people, figure things out and find their way and be successful. My primary business is technology, right? I make my money through technology. I own an IT consulting company. We solve IT problems. If you have a business and you want to make money, you want to be successful, and you want to serve your clients, I 100% guarantee that we can help you reach your goals through how you use and look at and leverage your technology.
How do you separate your personal health guru business type from the technology IT business?
How do I separate them? Like in my own use of my own time? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, as in time, or mostly time, I guess.
You know what? I find that it all kind of comes together. For me, I'm passionate about self-improvement. I always have been, since I was a kid. I'm 48 now, but I remember going back as far as being like 11, 12 years old, and even being attracted to it and reading books. This is back in the late 80s, early 90s, about self-improvement. So that whole space has always been interesting to me. And for me, it's evolved as I've gotten older into this spiritual, just understanding of how everybody's connected and how things happen. And so it naturally flows into business, because in business, it's all about really meeting people that you connect with, the clients that I have, the vendors that I work with, the people that work in my company. It all is about being connected and understanding each other and being on the same sort of ship, going the same direction, with the same wind blowing you the same way. So it's as much as I spend my own personal time, and a lot of it focusing on how to improve, how to get better as an individual, as a human. It totally ties into everything that we do in business. And if you listen to me in business talk with people, it's very, very much about just, how can we be at a level where we're just understanding each other and connecting. And if we have people in business that we don't feel good about, that we don't connect with, we probably won't even work with them. So, all the time I spend on my own journey, it totally ties into so many of my clients. I even end up in conversations with them where I end up giving them some of the things I've learned and some guidance, and people find it interesting. They find it useful. So it all kind of blends together for me. When I'm working and I'm talking with people that work in my company, I spend so much time giving one-on-one mentoring and guidance, and any problem that somebody tends to have, excuse me, it always ends up, the conversation ends up elevating to what's going on, what are your fears, what's holding you back, and ultimately helping people come to those conclusions. It seems to always help them even at work. So it all ties together. It really is all one and the same, and it comes from a place of service and wanting to help other people.
Which one did you start first? Did you start your technology IT first, or were you helping people become better first?
The IT I got into when I was about 28 or 29. So I can tell you, going back to even being a child, I always had this desire to be of service. I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction and personal fulfillment from knowing that a conversation or a hand held out to somebody, a helping hand or whatever it is, it makes me feel really, really good and satisfied to know that I impacted somebody else. I can remember having those moments and those experiences being 10, 11 years old. For example, I used to volunteer at the Y where I lived. And when I was 12 years old, I remember being asked if I wanted to help out somebody who had, I think it was MS, but I'm not sure what it was, but it was something pretty debilitating. And I helped a gentleman who needed help getting dressed and undressed in the locker room and getting into the pool and just functioning, because his wife wanted him to try and stay as healthy as he could with such a challenging disease that he had. And I volunteered. I did it. It wasn't for money. It was because I saw an opportunity to help somebody who really needed help. And it wasn't easy for this guy to take my help, because he was, he wanted to get dressed himself. He wanted to, take a shower and be able to stand there, without help. And I would go in the locker room with him and help him with these things. I was 12 years old. So it goes back a long time.
And as far as the IT company goes, when did you start it? You started at 29, but did you start it on your own? Did you have a team? What was happening when you started it?
That's a great question. So for me, I took a very sort of alternative, unpaved path to get there. I did all sorts of things. In my 20s, I went from driving a forklift midnight shift in a warehouse in Newark, New Jersey, to driving a truck for 2.5 years, to roofing and landscape. All these things I did. Ultimately, when I was about 28, a friend of mine from the firehouse where I was a volunteer fireman, his brother happened to be starting an IT consulting business down at the World Trade Center in New York City at Deutsche Bank. And he needed some people that at all different levels. And I just at that time was thinking to myself, hey, let me go to computer school, which I would pay for, and maybe just kind of settle into something. And I was also toying with being a paid fireman. I wasn't sure. I was kind of finding my way still at about 28. And long story short, I ended up connecting with my friend's brother. He offered me a job, and it was in IT. I didn't know anything whatsoever about computers. I mean, nothing. This is during the time of this is the late, this is around 98, 99 or so. And we were still using dial-up, AOL to connect, to the internet. And he gave me an opportunity, and it was right place, right time. I took the opportunity, and I ended up working at the World Trade Center, Deutsche Bank. And they taught me from the ground up the most basic things about how to replace somebody's computer. That's how I started. It wasn't my own business. It was literally from the ground up, knowing nothing. My own business didn't come for obviously many years after that.
So your Guru is your current business?
The comment that I kind of made tongue in cheek was the Guru part was there's just two things. One, I'm an IT expert, and not just technically, but when it comes to IT strategy and applying that to other people's businesses, I'm really good at that, and it's important to own that. And so you could say that I'm a guru when it comes to that, and it's a combination of IT strategy and business strategy, and just guiding other business owners to help them make more money, be successful, grow their business, meet their goals, manage risk. On the personal development side, I've been through so many things and so much stuff, and had so many experiences in so many different ways that there's people in my personal life that look at me and jokingly call me the personal development and health guru. So I'm not sure how true it is, but it seems that way to the people around me because of how much time I spend on it, and how authentically part of my life that is.
So what are you doing on that part of your life? Are you offering mentorships or trainings, or you giving speeches? What are you doing on that side?
You know what? I would love to do that, all those things. And that was all part of a plan until our lives changed last year. And so that going forward is something that I do want to start to do, all of the things you just said. But what I do personally for myself, and I'll tell you real quick, and I find this, by the way, some of these things are true for a lot of the most successful business owners and entrepreneurs I know. There is some consistency to the systems that they have in place, but some of these are common to them too. What I do is I meditate every day, sometimes a few times a day. And I do it because it clears my mind and gives me the freedom and the space and the peace to be able to just have clarity and to be able to be more creative. I spend a lot of time reading, and I read things that are really definitely not religious spiritual, but spiritual in the way that, I believe that there's in such things as like vibration. I'm speaking and you're hearing me because there's a vibration, right? And so, when you explain things like coincidences and you say, well, is it really a coincidence, or was something like, hey, there's some sort of connection and maybe that was meant to happen. So I kind of believe in those things, and I take them deeper and I study them and I learn about possibly how people are all connected, and my awareness is always up. I'm always looking for those moments where people call them like serendipity, but there's those things like, wait, wow, that's amazing. How did I meet that person? And all of a sudden that led me to this, which led me to that. And, for me, it's like, I know those things are meant to be, and you just sort of look for them and expect them. And they kind of find you. So, but I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of reading. I do tend to surround myself as much as I can with people that are like-minded in that way, so that I can sort of expand my thinking in those ways. I also, to your point, I do mentor in a way, people that I speak to that are open to it, that want to have those conversations. I share everything I know and everything that I've ever learned, not pushing my beliefs on people, but sharing the knowledge that I've gained that seems to be things that people might want to know about. So friends, family, coworkers, whoever, we have a lot of like informational, intellectual, but spiritual conversations about a lot of cool stuff. So it's I do a lot of talking on my own YouTube page, videos I shoot. There's a lot of, you'll hear me talking about a lot of those things as well. It's just part of the lifestyle,
Right. Let's talk more about what you're reading on the spiritual side. I found that kind of interesting. I've never really studied like serendipity and coincidences, and that'd be kind of interesting to talk about.
It's an interesting book that I think it's a business book, but it's so surprisingly based in that concept of spirituality. Think and Grow Rich, which is a very, very well-known book. It's been around since the early 20s by Napoleon Hill, I think it is. It's interesting for a guy who wrote that book so long ago, how the book is so based in visualization and desire. I think desire might even be a chapter called Desire, when you want something bad enough and you can feel it so deeply in yourself and in your thoughts. Not in a way where you're just dreaming about it, because you might just be dreaming about it, but in a way where you are, your belief is so strong that you can manifest. The book is written about interviews that were had with some of the most successful industrialists of that time. Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford. I mean, the book was about interviews that this guy did with those people, and they all believed in that as being part of their business success. So that's the connection. But that book is phenomenal. I've read that book about 10 times. That's definitely top of the list. Think and Grow Rich, for a combination of spirituality and sort of mindset and business all in one.
Actually, I'd like to talk more about this, because I read Think and Grow Rich and I didn't really like the idea that if you just believe it, it will happen. I like a book that's more step by step. What are your thoughts on believing something to make it happen?
Well, it's not that if you just believe it, that it'll happen. It's when you believe so strongly in something, it impacts your thinking and your energy and the way you carry yourself, which carries over to the conversations that you have with people, the vibe that people get when they're around you, the choices you make, the things you expose yourself to. So it's the idea that let's say you want to have $1 million in your bank account, something like that, and you make it a material desire. Well, if you act like you have that, and you feel like you have it, and you're thinking like you have it, and you're carrying yourself in a way that it does tend to attract things into your life that will help you get it. That is true. I'll give you a kind of very basic example of that. When I was starting out in IT, which I was talking about before, there was a point in, I think it was my second or third job in IT, where I was doing help desk support, running around to people's desks for a company I worked for in New York City. I came into work every day, and I was around executives of a billion-dollar company. And I was just the IT guy running around fixing their computers. Everybody that I worked with came into work wearing, khakis and a sweater or whatever. They dressed as down as they could, without being sloppy. They did the bare minimum. I did the opposite. I thought of myself as an executive. I felt like an executive. I carried myself like an executive because I wanted to be an executive. And I looked at how they were carrying themselves and how they were talking and what they were doing and how they were dressing. And I had no money at the time, but I went to this store called Today's Man. And I think for $89 or $99 a piece, you could buy suits. And I had no money. I bought up 4 or 5 suits, put them on my credit card. And I wore a suit to work every single day. Nobody did that. I crawled around under desks in a suit every day. And I got to tell you, I felt different and I was treated differently. And the conversations that people had with me were different. I was looked at differently by my team. And because I felt like I was one of those executives, little by little by little, part of that, along with a lot of other thoughts and actions I took, ultimately I became an executive. You do have to have a vision and then feel like that vision is a reality and act like it, but do things. You have to take action. You have to execute. You have to do things to become that. And that's what's in the middle of, you're right. You don't just think something and it happens. That would be, that's crazy. You think something, you believe it so deeply that you act like it, and it will happen. It's a fact. It will happen. It might not happen tomorrow, and you might not see the signs as it's happening, but over time, it will happen. And I've had that happen over and over and over and over, and it still happens.
Well, you talked about wearing a suit to help make you become an executive. What are some other ways people can do something to help become successful or become what they want to be?
Now you're talking. So, I wore that suit to create a mindset for myself. And it worked as part of, a lot of other things. I came in early, I stayed late, I had a can-do attitude. I learned everything I could. I soaked up every piece of information I could. I watched people around me and absorbed what people were doing right, what they were doing wrong. But advice, if you want to be successful, money and quote unquote success traditionally aren't really the goal. So the goal is to be at peace and happy inside with yourself, and to make sure that what you're doing is fulfilling you, that you're genuinely happy. That's a piece of advice that it took me a long time to figure out. But once I did, because I was happier inside as a human being, what I was doing, I was much happier in that, and people around me were really much happier and had a better experience with me. You need good mentors. So I would highly recommend surrounding yourself with really good mentors. Don't surround yourself with people who think that they're successful in any given way, or that are giving you advice that they think is good advice. Surround yourself with mentors that have actually been successful in whatever it is that you're looking to be mentored in. If I'm going to look for somebody to give me advice on how to be successful in my business, I'm not going to go to somebody who's not successful in their business, right? So get yourself a good handful of good mentors, and those might change over the course of time in your life. Get mentors that are applicable in the point in your life where, it makes sense, but make sure that they actually have the experience to be the mentor that you need. It doesn't have to be a business mentor. It could be a mentor in fitness. It could be a mentor in mindset. For mindset, there's people that I follow, like that are some of them are household names, like Tony Robbins. It's cliche, but that guy's an unbelievable mentor. I've never met him, but the advice that he gives is priceless as far as mindset. So you definitely need mentors, and I would highly recommend tapping into your creative side, no matter how you do it. Because in order to be successful in any way that you define success, you need to be creative. You have to be able to see things that nobody else sees. You have to be able to see things in yourself, good and bad, and be able to work on the bad or the undesired qualities in yourself, and be able to step back and improve yourself, which requires creativity. Like, you've got to be able to see that and figure it out and take constructive criticism. Those things are really, really important. I mean, if you're going to succeed in life, no matter what aspect of life, those things all apply. Like, you really need to do that. The other thing that I would say is know when to pivot. If you're going down a certain path and it's just not working, you need to know when to stop and say, okay, I know I put X amount of time in, but I realize that right now it's time to stop and I have to choose a different path. I have to go a different direction and pivot. And what's the word I'm looking for? You want to embrace that change. Okay, so I was going this way and now I'm stopping and I'm going this way, and it's okay. I didn't waste time going the other way. I learned lessons. I made mistakes. It didn't get me what I wanted, but now I'm going to go this way and just go and do it and don't look back. That is priceless advice that I've not been given that advice on my way up to where I am, but it is advice that I can pass along because I naturally am somebody that pivots without feeling any. I can change on a drop of a dime, and I embrace it because I thrive on the change. Not true for everybody. Change is difficult, but you have to embrace change and you got to pivot.
When should someone pivot? Because there's stories in business where the business was failing, but the person just stuck on just long enough that it ended up succeeding. And then there's other stories where it just toppled and fell.
That's true.
Or even just on one of those long phone calls when you're on hold and you're just waiting and waiting, and you put so much time into it that you just don't want to hang up because you're already 10 minutes in. When you know to pivot and to change.
Well, on that phone call, I would have a different phone next to me that I can use to make other calls while I got that other call on mute. And it's like calling motor vehicles or calling like the IRS or something. You can't hang up because you wind up going to the back of the line. But, make it something more life impacting. If it's a relationship you're in, wife or a spouse or a significant other, that's difficult. You really have to know when you feel like you've given something as much as you can or want to, and it's not. There's no finite or definite answer like when that is. You just have to be able to know that there's a point where you have self-respect and you enough to know that this is in a relationship. I've gone as far as I want to go, and I don't want to invest any more of my time in this in the way that it is. So either it's going to change, and there's going to be an agreement to change, or I'm going to pivot and go a different direction there. I'd say we could do a whole 2 hours on that. In business, it's much more easy to answer that question. You put your business goals together. You have you have maybe some weekly, monthly, quarterly plans that you put in place, and that you put some execution actions behind, and they're all designed to have an outcome. And the outcome it could be anything for any business, but you want that outcome to happen because you're looking to have an impact on the business. You're looking to grow. You're looking to get more customers, help more people, whatever it is. If you're realizing that decision that you made to go down that path, which by the way, you should, making a decision is better than making no decision. You made the decision to go left, and you're going and going and going. And you're like, wait, I see the market is changing. And I see that what I thought was a good decision at the time, because it seemed like it based on good information. Now, 3 months later, wow, this isn't going to be a good decision. If I keep going, I could end up missing a different opportunity. So there's an opportunity cost. Do I go left or do I go right? You have to use, and I think this is the real true answer to the question. You have to find the wisdom to know when it's right. And the way you get the wisdom is through experience, through making mistakes in the past, and through using some intellect, right? Just some logic. There's all of that combined, especially the mistakes you've made in the past. You have wisdom. That's what wisdom is, right? It's just time and experience. You kind of have a sense of like, all right, this doesn't feel right. And there's a reason why it doesn't feel right. And you stop and you think that through. Like you actually need to listen to that gut instinct because it's real. Your brain is telling your belly something, which gives you a gut instinct. That's called wisdom. Listen to it and pause and say, wait a minute, let me reevaluate whatever this is that we're talking about. And you may come right there to find, all right, that's not what I thought. You have to make the decision to either keep going and know that there's a risk that you're going the wrong direction, but you're going to keep going because you got this far, Or you have to say, okay, look, I went this far. It doesn't look like the decision is a good one now. And now I'm going to go the other way. And the other way could look like a good decision now. And then 3 months later, it ends up not that you're reevaluating. This is a constant, never ending cycle of assessing all of your decisions all the time and knowing when to stop and when to go a different direction. I've been lucky that I don't fear change, and I'll people that work with me in my company, sometimes it drives them nuts. Well, I'll make a decision that we're going to be going after this particular product, this particular way with this particular partner. We'll start doing marketing. We'll start doing training. 6 months later, I'll be like, hit the brakes. No, we're going this way. And they'll be like, what? And then I just know in my gut, I'm like, it seemed right at the time. The market changed, the customers changed, the environment around us changed. Businesses want a different type of solution. So we're not going this way. We're going this way. And I'm not going to keep chasing something because I put 6 months into it. So be it. We all learned a lot during that 6 months. We got a lot of great teamwork. It wasn't a waste, but we're not going to be able to help people with this. It doesn't make sense. Now we're going this way. It's a gut feeling that comes from a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience. And that's why you need mentors, because if you're early on in business, you're not going to be able to see that fast enough. And you could really cause yourself a problem by chasing something or following something too far. Just because you took it so far, you don't want to hit the brakes. If you don't hit the brakes, you can have a huge problem.
Let's talk about mentors for a bit. Who have been some of your mentors?
So a couple different sources. Early on, there wasn't YouTube and there wasn't social media, so I didn't have access, 20 years ago to the things that I have access to now. Currently, my mentors at this point in my life are a combination of people that I follow on social media. I do follow Grant Cardone a lot. I spend a lot of time investing in real estate, and that's one of his big things. But I also respect his business acumen and what he's done and what he's built and his marketing skills. So I study him. I watch everything he puts out on video. And another one is somebody that I discovered through Grant Cardone's podcast, which is a guy named Ed Milet. These are huge influencers. I watch everything Ed puts out and all the interviews he does. I do still read certain people I follow who, one of them is Robin Sharma, I think is his last name. He put out a book called The 5 a.m. Club. I'd consider him a mentor because I ended up subscribing to his sort of daily, the notes that he puts out. Super positive guy, has a lot of good insight into mindset and what he calls heart set and soul set. So I consider him a mentor. I learned a lot from his book and from watching him. There's a few more like that, but in my actual life, in my real life, that's not people that I don't know. I'm not going to name names, but I have a very close friend of mine who's been very successful in the hedge fund business. Really smart business guy who I bounce a lot of things off of. He gives me a lot of feedback on business decisions, contracts, ideas. Super smart guy. I have 2 or 3 other people like that. But one of my mentors, a friend of mine, very successful in business, also is a really good understanding of sales. And so I definitely bounce a lot of things off of him. I like to hear his stories. I like to be around him and expose myself to just, how he connects with people and how he's able to, sales. A lot of people look at it as literally just trying to sell something. I don't. I look at it as my ability to be able to help people make decisions so that they can solve the problems they have in business. So I like to expose myself to people that help me sort of improve with that, because it is a skill set. And, when you're trying to help somebody and you are trying to convince them of your way of thinking so that they do end up working with me and my company, it is because I believe we can impact them and help their business. So I have some mentors that are very helpful with that. Financially, I do follow a few people, 1 or 2 people on social media. Actually, a person I follow every day, which is a household name, is Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I adopted his entire mindset with investing about 10 years ago, and I would consider him a mentor. And I subscribe to him on YouTube. I watch everything he puts out. So I do this every day. Like I wake up really early and I put time in every morning reading and watching. and I do it at night before I go to bed. So I spend a lot of time with these mentors, either the virtual ones or the ones that are, real life people that I have access to. And I do that. I tend to multitask while I'm either walking or driving, and and make those phone calls and keep those connections alive. But it's really, really important, and as I go forward, I'm meeting new people now. I just connected with somebody with my podcast that I'm starting, who now is going to be my mentor, and he's going to teach me how to do an unbelievable podcast, how to put it together, produce it, deliver it, get attention. I consider him a mentor, and that's a new relationship I just started last week.
Let's go through your daily routine. I know you meditate and you read a lot, and then you go to your mentors every day. What does your daily routine look like?
Okay, that's cool. It's a good question. So I'm pretty systematic. So I wake up every day around 5 to 5:30. I'm trying to get it to 5, but it's always by 5:30. And I get up and I go downstairs. I have my coffee, and while I'm doing that, that's when I start to do. I do a half hour meditation. Sometimes I'm listening to certain things that I want to have in my mind all day. And so I'll do that for a half hour. Then I stretch. I work out 4 or 5 days a week, but in the morning I stretch my whole body. It just gets my energy flowing, really loosens me up, clears my mind. Then I quickly will go in through any emails I need to get into. I try to do all this before not just my family, but the business world wakes up. I'll get through my emails. It usually takes 15 minutes to a half hour. Clears me out, and just so I don't have that on my mind that I have anybody that's waiting for me to get back to them or anything I have to do. Then I do. Before I do that, I'll read. I read for a half hour. Then I get into the emails. And at that point, now the sun's up. People are up in my house, and I usually will try to get to the gym by 7:30, 8 o'clock. Get an hour and a half in. While I'm at the gym, that is when I set aside time to listen to the podcasts, the people that I follow. So Ed Milet or Kiyosaki or whoever it is, Joe Dispenza I listen to a lot. Whoever it is, I do that while I'm working out. I don't listen to music. I listen to those influencers. So at that point now it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. 8:30 I jump on my morning staff meeting every morning. We have a 5-minute call, set the stage, set the day, get the tone for the day with my company. Do that. And then from that point on, of course, I go and take a shower. But then I'm into my day. I'm into my own schedule. My MITs, which everybody should have. This is another important nugget. I learned this from Andy Frisella, which is another guy that I follow. The most important things, the MITs. I have a list of things that I do every Sunday night that I must do no matter what, come hell or high water, this week. So I focus on those MITs pretty much all day, every day. And I balance that in with my company's needs. I own my company. I run my company. And although I have a great support system around me with my bookkeeper and CFO and operations, I have accounts to manage. I have clients that I deal with. I have systems engineering that I get involved with. I have a tremendous amount of marketing that I get involved with. So I balance that all throughout the day. And then come about 4 or 5 o'clock, I kind of start to wind down, and I try to kind of shift my mind into wanting to go home and have family time, which is very, very important to me. So by 5:30, I try to be home and in the kitchen with my family, and there's cooking going on, and there's just everybody's together, and I really value and cherish that time a lot. And I'm getting literal with you. I mean, I go with my wife and my kids to walk the dog after dinner, but then I jump back into business. Usually I'm another hour or two, just either getting some more of those MITs done, or some reading, and that's it, man. It's a routine. I mean, it's day in, day out, and that's what I do. But it's all driven by my calendar. It's all like scheduled out. And the unknowns that pop up and that come my way during the day, I have to weigh the another great book, Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, classic book. You have to weigh what's important and what's urgent, and I do that all day, every day. And I think that's a very common balance in life for a successful, balanced business owner or entrepreneur that has figured it out how to have a balance. That's what I do. But I make sure I work in the mat time, the me time every single day. And I work on the weekends too. As a business owner, we all do, but I balance it out and I make sure that no matter what, I never ever skip the time that's important, most important, which is the time that I have to myself and with my family. How's that?
That is very detailed. That's great.
You asked.
I appreciate it. You ready to move into some final questions?
It's your show, man. I'm following your lead. Whatever you want, I'm here.
Okay. First of all, what would be the best advice you'd give to your younger self?
The best advice I can give to my younger self is every mistake that you made, make them all again. Make all the mistakes again. Because if I didn't make those, if I had an easier life, if I had an easier path, if I didn't have all of the struggle and difficulties and challenges that I had all the way coming up, none of this that I have now would be what it is. So my advice to my younger self, do it all, make all the same mistakes, screw up as many things as I screwed up, and pay attention, because those lessons are the lessons that actually make you successful in life.
Second, what is your favorite book?
Wow, man, that's a tough one. I have so many books that I love. I think the books that I mentioned, I'll go through them again. Maybe I'll think of one or two more. The books that have had the most impact on my entire life. The number one first book that I ever read that had the most impact was by Arnold Schwarzenegger. What's it called? What was that book called that he wrote? Something like Pumping Up or something. I forget what the book was called, but it's Schwarzenegger's first book that he wrote. That book was so motivational. And at that time in my life, when I was 13 or 14, I was like just getting into going to the gym every day. But I found him to be so inspirational and his story to be so inspirational that book certainly was one of the first books that changed my trajectory in life. I've been a lifelong fitness nut, and I've just never stopped hitting the gym, and just it's literally a part of my life, and that's because of that book. Other books that really made an impact that I would highly recommend, definitely the Napoleon Hill book. That's a life changer for me. Like I said, the book by Robert Kiyosaki was definitely a life changer. That book made me a lot of money because I actually changed my life to live in a way that he talked about in that book, because it made sense to me. It just clicked. And I actually made my wife read the book when I first read it, because I said to her, our life's about to change. You just should read this book so you understand what I'm doing, because it's not conventional and it's not what most people around us are going to do. And it turned out to be true. But it also changed my life and financially, because I adopted the advice he gave in that book, life-changing. I didn't buy that book. I bought that book for other people who are open-minded, and I've said, there, read it. It'll change your life. The Think and Grow Rich book. What else? Most recently, that 5 a.m. Club, that book absolutely changed my mindset and the way that I look at things and deal with things. That was huge. And actually, here, I have another one. It's right by my desk right here. Called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's a book about negotiating. That book changed the way that I approach every single conversation when it comes to contracts and deals, and even, just conversations with people. It helped me realize that everything's a negotiation. Even a conversation with my 12-year-old daughter is a negotiation. What are we having for dinner is a negotiation. That book changed my entire perspective on how to handle and how to have really productive, good conversations that ultimately are negotiations. So I highly recommend that book. That's another guy, I left him out, that I follow, Chris Voss. I follow him every morning. I mean, he puts stuff out. It's only 5 or 10 minutes. I watch his stuff every day. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. I'll leave you with those, because those are all high impact, change your life and lifestyle kind of books.
Third, what is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
I don't have a biggest failure. I have so many of them. I'll give you a funny one. It's not funny, but it's I can laugh at it now. I wasn't laughing. I was almost crying when it happened. So when I'm not sure if my wife even knows this. So when she listens to this, she'll get mad at me. But it's so long ago. I think I'm okay now. When I was probably 10 or 11 years ago, when my grandmother had passed away and left me some money, and I was messing around with the stock market, and I bought puts and calls. Like I was trying to trade options. I have no idea what I'm doing. I had no business doing that. And so I remember I had like $20,000, which is a lot of money. I had that basically bet on puts and calls for Citibank. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I panicked. And this was happening like when the market was crashing. It was going up and down. It was like very volatile. So I panicked and I sold both of them at the same time, which is the complete opposite of what I should have done. And I lost $20,000 like in a split second. And I remember I was in Cape May, New Jersey. We were down the shore. And I remember leaving the beach, going back to the hotel room and sitting on the floor with like my old big clunky laptop at the time and dialing in and like staring at the old school BlackBerry. I was watching the prices sitting on the beach. It was like crazy. And I went back to the hotel room and I executed this trade. I lost $20,000. And I just remember being like, wow, that's a ridiculous amount of money. And I wasn't making much money at the time. And I just couldn't believe how much money I lost in a split second by pressing a button. And it was a lesson in life. Like I should stop messing around with like the stock market and trading things and doing all these things. I have no idea what I'm doing. Of course, I did it like 10 more times over the years. I didn't lose that much money, but I messed around with like Bitcoin. I think I lost like $10,000 on Bitcoin back in 2017. It's like, if you don't know what you're doing, just don't do it, you know?
Good advice. Finally, if people want to follow your journey and find you, where can they do that?
Best thing to do right now is connect with me on LinkedIn. And it's easy to find me. It's just Matt Rosenthal and Mindcore. I'm the CEO. So you can find me on LinkedIn. But to really follow me and get really valuable information that, really is like impactful, that will help you, follow me on YouTube. Just subscribe to the Mindcore page and you'll see I put out a lot of content. It's not about IT. Sometimes it is. I put out content about all different types of things. I put out a video. It's not out yet. It'll be out in a couple of days about, I think it was the 5 or 6 things that you should do to prepare for a meeting. That was because I was in a meeting with somebody last week and the guy came so unprepared that I was almost embarrassed for him. And I said, wow, like I should put out a video telling people how to be prepared for a meeting. So there's cool stuff like that. There's a lot of mindset stuff. There's a lot of advice, on just personal development. So go to YouTube, find Mindcore, look for Mindcore Matt Rosenthal, and I'm telling you, subscribe. It's really worth it. You'll get a lot of valuable information, And if you might decide that even if you're in business and you want to contact me and just have me do some share some guidance and some knowledge and some experience, I'm happy to talk with you. If you want to work with me, great. But it doesn't matter. If you don't, I'd love to just be able to help you out. So those are the best 2 places right now. You can get me on Instagram too. I don't know offhand what that handle is, but so YouTube and LinkedIn, just search my name and search my company.